From the Melody Lane. Who spent some time on the Pro Bowlers Tour and also is a proprietor in this area. And we have a special guest with us this week, Ross, and he's a man everybody knows probably in this area who's followed pro bowling for any amount of time, and that's Roy Buckley. And Roy ranks in the top 20 money-winning list for his career, and you're up around $500,000, so it's good to have you here today, Roy.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your schedule these days. You've scaled down your appearances a bit on the Pro Bowlers Tour, haven't you?
Yes, I'm more or less semi-retired now. I think I'll bowl about 8 stops just this winter on the tour, and the rest of the time I'll just spend in my pro shop at home.
Ross, it sounds like a nice life. He's talking at a young age about semi-retirement, and he certainly has a lot of bowling expertise to bring to our show here today.
Yes, he does. Semi-retirement, I don't really think Roy would retire if he could stay out there. Today's lane conditionings and the way they've changed it, plus you've got to create some stability at home. I've done the same thing in recent years. I've tried to anchor, get some security, and I think Roy's doing the same thing right now.
Roy, are you familiar with our format for this show, or shall we tell you a little bit about it?
Well, I've gone over the format, but you can tell me anyway, make sure that I understand it.
Well, we look forward to your participation as far as commenting on the amateur bowlers who have come to our show to compete. We'll have 4 excellent matches coming up in today's show, but we always enjoy the commentary of people like yourself because you're able to tell us a little bit as far as tips that we can use. And are these easy to spot for you as you're sitting up there watching the amateur bowlers?
Pretty much so. Most people do make the same mistakes. We even make the same mistakes that they do. We just don't make them quite as often, and we realize what we're doing a little bit sooner. And that's basically the difference between the amateur and the professional. We're just a little bit more aware of the different situations or traps or whatever you want to call them that you get into, and we just adjust to them just a little sooner.
We look forward to the evening, and we look forward also to commentary from you, Roy, and to a clinic from you. So we'll be back to start with all the action in just a moment. Well, our first match now puts Russ Durston on the lanes against Bill Cobbett. And, of course, they go with the handicaps. Russ carries a handicap of 12. He starts off with a big strike.
Yes, we see Russ is using a polyester, no, excuse me, that's a urethane shelled ball.
Cobbett starting off with a Brooklyn hit, leaving the 6-10.
Yes, we have lefty-righty confrontation. We have a righty using the polyester ball, and we have a lefty using the urethane shell ball.
Bill Cobbett now shooting this spare is 31 years old, a truck driver. He's single, bowls out of Steel City Classic lanes. And he chops the 6-pin off. So a bad start for Bill Cobbett.
Yes, Roy, the 6-10 is not an easy spare. Basically, with the 6-pin out in front of the 10, there's always a tendency to chop that.
Yeah, that's one of the common mistakes some of the lower average bowlers make. They kind of take it for granted. They figure if they hit the front pin, they're going to always make the back one. You have to concentrate a little extra hard and make sure you hit both pins with the ball.
So Bill Cobbett once again comes in high and leaves himself with a split. 3-7.
Yeah, we can see here, as he goes into the foul line, he tucks the ball inside. He crosses the arrows at about the 12th board, and the ball is directly on the nose from the time it left his hand. I think he's got to loosen up a little bit with his first appearance on TV. He's probably tense.
Going to the right of the 3 and gets it too far to the right. So Bill has a tough start with 2 opens.
It's not easy coming out of the gate. You're cold, a little bit nervous, don't have the experience that players on the tour get from constant competition.
Russ Durston, 20 years old, a stock clerk. And he gets a shaky 7-pin there.
Roy, on the tour, you see this lefty-righty confrontation quite a bit in the match play. Is there a decisive advantage at times for one player or another?
Well, I always felt that the left-hander did have a little bit more of an advantage in some places. It just depends on the condition of the lanes. It's not as great nowadays with the new finish as it was, say, 10 years ago when we had the lacquer and the burnout tracks. There's not as many burnout tracks in the bowling centers around the country now with the new finish.
Yeah, by burnout track, you mean there's an area on the lane which you can't play because the wear of the lane has been so great over the course of the season that the right-handers...
Right. Most of the bowlers, or most of the people in the world, are right-handed, so the bowlers would wear out the track around the second arrow where there wasn't anything like that on the left.
Yeah, we saw Russ here throw an excellent shot. He's a power left-handed bowler. You can see here he cups his wrist at the beginning, he opens up. It's a lot of side roll on the ball. See the friction at the back end of the lane, turn the ball over and powers it through the pocket for a strike.
Bill Cobbett now in the 3rd frame, trailing by 22 pins, and he gets a strike.
Excellent shot. From this angle and the hand position that Bill's using, I would think he's rolling the ball as a full roller. He's pretty close to it if he's not. It has a very high track. Here you can see he packs the ball dead in the pocket. You can't throw it any better than that.
He was a bit disconsolate with his start there. He chopped the 6-pin off the 10 and then left himself with a 3-7, but got himself rolling in the 3rd frame. Let's see on the 4th. Leaves the 5.
I believe that is a full roller. It almost has to be with the hand release.
You can see his thumb is turned inside close to his body. He's almost carries the ball like you would carry a suitcase. You can see here, watch how his thumb turns in the downswing. The thumb is facing his leg and his fingers are to the right. He lets the ball go very close to thumb and fingers at the same time.
Right, that's definitely a full roller, and by that the hand turns clockwise instead of counterclockwise. The roll goes between the fingers and the thumb on a full roller. On a semi or a 3/4, it rolls outside the thumb.
So the conversion of the 5-pin by Bill Cobbett gives him 2 marks in a row. And now our leader, Russ Durston, bowling in the 4th.
Looks like another good shot. And there it is.
Indeed, 2 strikes in a row, 3 strikes out of 4 frames.
It's not only do we have a lefty-righty here, but we have 2 different types of bowlers. Even though they use different hands, they both turn the ball differently also. The left-handed bowler here can get around the ball with much more power, and when he does get the pocket, he's going to carry more strikes because of the roll of the ball.
This time he leaves a 7. Another good-looking ball, though.
Good hit there, Roy. What do you think? What can you do on a shot like that? Do you make an adjustment?
Not really. He threw that ball real well. The only thing, he was just a little fast with it. He was just a little too pumped up from getting the strike the frame before and just didn't take his time and let the ball roll enough on the lane.
Too much power, too much speed gives you a bad mix on the pin sometimes, and it hangs those corners.
Causes the ball to deflect when it hits the head pin, and then you hit too much of, in his case, the 2-pin, and then that makes the 4-pin go around the 7.
Both bowlers have friends here in the audience, and that is typical for us here on the HSE Amateur Bowlers Tour. Bill Corbett has a girlfriend sitting in the front row back there in the blue sweater. Perhaps you could see her. Russ Durston has a friend here as well, watching him bowl today. The 3-10.
Yes, I think because of the roll that Bill has on the ball with it full roller, he doesn't have the area to play that someone with a 3/4 roller or a lower track would have. He has to be more accurate, and you have a tendency to guide the ball a little bit. As you see here, he released the ball late inside his target, and he's through the nose with a fairly easy split to convert.
And he gets it too far to the right on the 310, so leaves himself open for the 3rd time in 5 frames.
Lane seemed to be just a little too oily for him. He's really not getting enough roll on his ball. If he had a little different surface volley, he may do a little bit better.
See Russ Durston's score, 101, and Bill Corbett bowling now, trailing by more than 33 pins at the present time. Leaves the 5-8. 5-9, make it.
The frame before on lane 7 here, he left the 5-pin. He threw the ball pretty good, and it just didn't finish into the pocket. And the last 2 shots have just been a reaction from that. He's tried to make sure that the ball was high enough into the pocket and hit enough of the head pin so he could get a strike. Consequently, he kind of pulled it a little more than he should, and went too high or went to the left of the head pin. Those are just human errors that most people make that they have to overcome. You can't allow something that's happened to you before determine what you do on the next shot. It can have some bearing, but it can't determine the whole outcome of the shot.
Russ Durston there comes up with a count of 8. It's an unusual leave of sorts, 3-5.
Yeah, that's caused the ball come in a little bit late, got in behind the pocket. He got a bad mix. The head pin wasn't able to mix with the 3.
He converts. Durston with 3 strikes and 3 spares through the first 6 frames is our leader by a wide margin.
You can see here where he plays his spare from outside. Goes through about the 8th board, cross alley. Converts by covering the spare with the ball, as you like to do at all times.
Big lead for Russ Durston, and a strike on top of it in the 7th frame.
Roy, when you get a lead like this on the tour and you're in match play, we can see here we have a replay of the last shot. Excellent shot. Good roll. You can see the friction on the back end of the lane. Roll the ball over. It shifts the weight block. The ball goes into a heavy roll and carries the 7 off the wall.
Bill Cobbett gets a strike off the Brooklyn side.
Yes, as I was starting to say, Roy, when you get in the lead in a match like this, is it harder to keep your concentration, or do you get more pumped up because you're in the lead and bowl better?
Oh, really? I feel that you kind of relax a little bit, and you may have just a little too much letdown. If you do have to bowl another game after that, you have to really concentrate extra hard to keep your momentum and make yourself do what you should be doing, and not like lighten up or whatever.
Yeah, you relax a little bit. The pressure's taken away and you have a tendency not to perform as well. Then you have to come back the next game and get it back together. It's not as easy.
Many of these bowlers making their first appearance on television, and as you gentlemen alluded to the fact that Bill Cobbett had his problems in the early frames, and perhaps part of it caused by TV. There's a good conversion on the 2-pin.
Yeah, to be one of the best, you have to perform under unusual circumstances, pressure situations, and I guess the more experience you get in those situations, the better you become at it.
Well, Russ Durston in the 8th with a wide lead, and leads a 6-10.
Yeah, not a bad shot there. Still has a lot of speed. The pins seem to be flying off the deck. He's not getting a good mix where you can see here the ball's a little bit tight, which for a lefty he should leave the 6-10, 6-pin on a snug hit, but the pins are going up in the air and over and around.
Well, no open frames in this match for Russ Durston.
We'll pass it.
He now has 159 through 7 and a wide lead over Bill Cobbett as we go to the 9th.
Another fine shot.
Russ Durston with a strike in the foundation frame. Could be pretty close to closing this one out here, Ross.
Yeah, he's got about a 40-pin lead, 42 pins, depending on what Bill does on the first ball. Bill can only go out for 197, and without Russ falling down and throwing a couple gutter balls the rest of the way out, he's pretty much have it locked up.
Well, that should just about cinch it right there as another split comes up for Bill Cobbett. 5-10.
It's an unusual pocket hit, Roy.
Yeah, the ball was really not finishing much at all. This is why he was going high so many times in the middle of the match, or the earlier part of the match, because the ball wasn't finishing, and he was trying to really force or guide the ball into the pocket a little bit higher. That one he tried to let roll a little bit and hit just the pocket, medium pocket, and left a weak split.
Got to relax, let the ball roll freely. We were talking earlier, Roy, you mentioned the fact that the maple on these lanes, which is the first half of the alley, is it's unusually long here. You usually don't have the hard boards go down the lane quite as far as they do here.
I've only bowled in one other center where it was like this, and it was in Baltimore, and it was a converted duck seat house. They used to make the maple, half the lane maple and half the lane pine, and that looks like this, what this is.
Yeah, you have the hard maple in the head area in the first, well, at this house, it's about the first 28 feet, it looks like. It's for durability, so the impact of the ball when it's leaving your hand, it doesn't damage the wood.
And Cobbett converting at 2, 4, 5, 7 there. So he'll earn another ball here in the 10th, but it officially is over with Russ Durston.
You can see him shoot this cross alley here. It's not an easy spare to convert. You can't cover all the pins with the ball, so there's a little bit of luck involved regardless of where you play it from. But he does make a fine conversion.
I think he's learned a lot on this show.
Yes, I think the experience will do him well should he come back in one of our later